This is Roger Markby, Nelson Toll, co-founder of Capital Chemist, and Gary here. Symbolic of trying to show respect for his dick sucking of Roger while he rocks like that back and forth. Rock. And here's Roger going, well, I'll do the overseas collusion and all the scientific fraud and stuff. Good idea, Roger. Go, Boofs, go. Pause. Go. Open 7 days. We want to play with your ass and suck balls. Come to Capital Chemist. We'll play with your ass and we suck balls. Suck balls. Capital Chemist. We suck balls. Capital Chemist. Open at a suburb near you. Hi, I'm Gary Gans, the fucking hero from Capital Chemist. Violence is caused by the neurochemical subordination of women. Their feelings. They come from their ovaries. The Freemason interest in perpetuating and spreading around martyr complex claims. When you get into the nitty-gritty of it, it's absolutely contingent on belief in the veracity of forged or plagiarized texts. So the texts are truthful is a false proposition. And there's not only no substantiation for the claim that they're true, it's known that the two non-Johannine Gospels that preceded historically in terms of their penship, the Gospel of John, were written by those in possession of the Gospel of St. Mark, and that 70 to 90% respectively were words were repeated verbatim out of the earliest gospel and into the other two. Now it's this contradiction of sentiment and sensibility in the last words of Jesus. The sensibility of being betrayed by betrayed by Heavenly Father is one that I would estimate the Freemasons to enjoy, because it's more semblant of a proof of a Luciferian, cross-referential, devil's advocate, prosecution of the archetypal role and utilitarian significance of God. Whereas, because nothing is really said about Lucifer in relation to Jesus, in relation to the crucifixion process, and they're left wanting to fill in the blanks there, since Lucifer as their patron saint is a handler, if you like. Christians are quite blind to it. The book of Job in the Old Testament is one story where as far as the role dynamics between God and Lucifer. Lucifer handles God to do things like kill Job's family. So now then, the other avenue, and because these two contradict, and they've got to harmonize them in order to overtake Christianity and know better, and know how to marshal out this project of trying to unify these religions that are fundamentally at odds with one another. I'm not contradicting myself by representing all these contradictions about them and then saying that they're unifiers. They are in hiding, and that the most they say of themselves is that they're into unifying, is to placate the public. Because discussions within churches that are on the topic of unity result in the consequential spreading out into alternative denominations. And I've been saying that from the start now. So long as I have decided to name or nominate a member of the citizenry to be deemed a martyr, they're that fucked in the head from what they believe that, you can have been an employee who was not who worked full-time hours on a non-contractual verbal agreement. That's our only real contingency in terms of going, well, we meet here and we'll respect each other's differences in principle from here, but here's the basis for our employment trust. Between them and me, it was complete abolishment and distancing of myself from religion. So I was betrayed on that front from the moment I joined O'Connor, and it's what's made me wonder if whether Elizabeth Braddon wanted to instigate the affair with Tanya, because I look back and she isn't the type I would have accepted a lift home from. I like to spend more time getting to know someone, and I like to feel how I'm more of a participant in the. I mean, the religious can take interest in the non-religious as part of an opposites attract quality to an affair, but things like existential isolation, once they look into those concepts, if they haven't themselves sort of contested religiosity, they just won't get it. Then they'll think you're being misogynist or disrespectful, when really I think we use words and language to keep a modern spin on where we're at evolution-wise, but I think it was just instinctively known to our primate ancestors that, partners and spouses, we can't escape that anyone else exists conceptually to us. Now, it's something that the religious mind can't dispute, knows makes more sense than their religion, and yet will be very aggressed by the challenge posed by existentialist thought. To the point that they would want to contest existentialism with religion. I love how on Star Trek they represented philosophy books in the future, authored by Surak of Vulcan. He's considered to have been... The Vulcans were actually, going back in their history, they consider themselves or recognize themselves ruled by emotion too much, that they, by way of logic, would practice meditatively the repression of their emotions. But that's not... It's actually only when instincts are severely driving the individual to mate and breed that, and the Vulcan goes through Pon farr, that if that drive isn't satisfied within an approximation of the time by which it ensues, then the Vulcan will aggress and initiate a fight. It's about every 7 years. But I love how they represented that in the future. There were these books of Surak, and so Surak is the Vulcan who is credited by the Vulcan planet and people to have helped them overcome and transcend emotional barbarism through the discipline of self-imposed logic, disciplinary logic, and it was just I thought a genius moment in Star Trek drama to show, you see the spine of a book, paperback book, and it's saying the title is Surak Surak and Existentialism, and you can just imagine Vulcans going, well, this is interest. This is an interesting literary genre, because existentialism tackles instead of imagining two supernatural male beings and that you're a member of the Flat Earth Society, and you're not sure if you're going to spend the afterlife up in out of space or underneath the surface with the Freemasons. And you want to think that these ideas, that Christianity, the Christian poison is sensible and true, when its best wisdom pales in comparison to the existentialist. If there were one book in the Bible that had any paragraphs or sections that edify or represent elements or concepts in existentialism, it would have to be the book of Ecclesiastes. Though there's nihilism as well there. There are timing coincidences between nihilism and existentialism, but they're different. The neo-nihilism has perhaps bridged some of the categorical distinctions between nihilism and existentialism, almost as if it's the initiation of a bridge, but between the basics. But you know, everything is meaningless and there's nothing new under the sun, and uh, it's kind of had uh, though confronting, and though confronting in terms of its wisdom has been superior to that of theologies, it is itself an exhausted or exhaustible sort of stepping stone philosophically, and you go, well, I want more, and then existentialism seems more mature, but neo-nihilism has matured a bit in that rather than this perpetuating this stereotype of everything being meaningless, it talks about morality being an illusion. Law is force, and life is will to power. And you certainly can't say that there's not virtue to those concepts, and yet there is to Abrahamic stories of incest in a garden, and kids fucking kids, and this being the perfect creation in the perfect image of a God who admits to homicide, genocide, infanticide, sexual slavery, the murder of children, throwing babies that don't pass post-delivery inspection against rocks, seizing entire cities, killing every man, woman and child, but inspecting virgins for hymens and keeping them alive for themselves in the event that they discover the hymen to be intact. Endorsing the ransom put up for the betrayal ransom put up for the kidnapping and handing over of Jesus, for the false charging of Jesus being the King of the Jews, the acknowledgement that he had male and female disciples, refusal to admit he had any sort of sexual health identity while insisting that he loves everyone, or did in his day love everyone, while omitting completely the Queen to King Herod from all of the Gospels. Now, this could have been that she saw the effect he was having sociologically and admired it, and that admiration bothered King Herod, or that she wanted him dead more so than Herod. Where that gets difficult to know for sure is because we know that when it came to the penship of a manuscript, men had the final say. So the only indisputable fact that you have to go off is the failure to have any reference to the Queen to King Herod in relation to Jesus. None exists whatsoever, and they could have reflected effeminate traits. So it somehow seemed, or it contributed to the wrongfulness that I believe was perceived. Something had to charge the story going around, and I believe that what gave enough charge sociologically for even 37 years to pass before the first and historically best manuscript was penned, was the impression cast of a true injustice. One reason why it would bind to the memories of everyone around is that the thought, well, this could happen to any of us, would have been a unifying concept. So it's hard to say, because, supposing that the Queen to King Herod showed admiration for what Jesus was doing, it would have fangled with the insecurities and temperaments of King Herod, and then perhaps inspired the bounty, but then at the same time there was her rule as his partner, and Jesus having female disciples would have seemed like perhaps stealing her thunder, and then her being more in favor of the bounty than Herod himself. So what you can go by is that it would have been a mark of shame on the kingdom at the time. Is definitely, either way you go about it, looking at it, it's definitely the best, most parsimonious description for why King Herod's queen and her point of view is omitted, and her name is omitted completely from any of the Gospels. Plus, it's also, I suppose, a support for Bishop Spong's case that Mary Magdalene was Jesus' wife and not a whore, because concealment of the Queen to King Herod's name even being mentioned, plus this, your wife's a hoe, like a slander being thrown in. Hard to know. Hard to know. And that's another point on where these Freemasons also think that if they're to put you in a interrogative state, subject to their interrogation and them trying to get intel out of you, you are not to ever saying you don't know is like they see it as you following Jesus to the narrative of where he's dying, going, my father, why have you forsaken me? And it's this gayness of theirs, in addition to this fagginess of theirs. What I'm trying to do with this word, and I truly hope you understand, I support the gay community. I just think that their gay rights won't be perceived as important enough by society until they've been supported by non-religious leaders, because otherwise there's too tacky a view taken on social Darwinism that evolution would be exterminating gays, which religionists can do to compound. Like I say, they're always looking for ways to show that their religion holds true to this day. All life been traceable ultimately to a common source is more of a principle annotative of the principle of evolution than social Darwinism. That refers to our roles and things like that within society. It doesn't refer to evolution and in the sense of the science of how we came to exist. But yeah, so, and this is an absurdity, and why, if they think if they're profiling a bisexual, then yeah, their moves are to never deviate from applying the Jesus narrative in the eyes of and minds of a Freemason, against their selected mark. So it honestly, but where that's fallacious is that some things you don't know the answer to. Everybody. So it's only and plus it's also impossible to believe in the truth of a plagiarized gospel. So how can you follow something that you don't even believe to be true? Well, you can't. And you also, since they are trying to forcefully misrepresent you as a Christian adherent, they want to say that if you say that you don't know something, well, it's indicative of you going, my father, why hast thou forsaken me? Because the sensibility behind that is, I don't know why this has all happened. Which is it's actually a fair enough thing for Jesus to have asked, but that's if it were not a compounded, plagiarized gospel. So yeah, the Freemasons that are connected to Big Pharma, such as Faggoty Cans and Roger Markby, they're absolutely into representing someone as disassociative, themselves as heroes, and in between doing what they can to try and prevent the right to think. And that's why I think, pedo as they are, that they don't consider it more of an honourable hard day's work for them to have cracked and aged faces more so than their women. Perhaps they're pedo little dicks. They're hoping that to through facial aging to put vaginas all over their women's faces. I'm not sure, but yeah, this idea to represent photoelectricity and video as the cause of illness, in addition to the concealment of them hiding behind screens while researching without consent of the citizen, is also concealment of things that they don't want to address, like facial profiling and genetic determinism of to try and get your driver's license involves and to have participated in go-karting, and then the suggestion that you can murder or you can kill without comprehension of your own choice. It's heroes that say that. It's military that say that. It's pharmacy that say that. Now, the girls who know that I really grew up, I'm more like, I'm sort of girly and certainly prefer female company. Where I no longer have time to say, I could stomach the claim to have been a friend, to consider the friendship of Alan legitimate. One point is that when singing songs about Jesus, I would cry, and she had insisted I had some profound vision. But I was in a sense alarmed by her accosting, thinking, I'm wanting to say I'm offended by this man's death. What astonished me later was to realize that uh, scholarship of the New Testament supported that experiences like that of my childhood had not disposed me towards bias in wanting to oppose the crucifixion, even in the context of philosophic discourse in tackling theological claims. So when I was crying, she was going, "Oh, how beautiful." She did not know how to comfort or console me. So after 2017, what I knew, the time I had been set on was, well, if hearsay constituted more of the three of them, Melanie, Cassandra, and Tanya's claim to have appreciated me in some capacity, and I've said again, like saying what's not ascertained but assumed, and this age difference that older women leverage over you is that I've been around traps, and I know when someone wants me, and you'd be like, I cannot believe, like, for the claims that you make about trusting me but being distrustful of men because you think all they want to do is fuck you, and then what you turn and say to me and say of me has proven that you're not even interested in ascertaining from my own words what I think of you or if I'm attracted to you. And to preclude such things on my behalf, Tanya doesn't stand in that category. Just Alani and Cassandra. What I would say to Alani is, if you threaten eternal torture to the children of other families and other parents, and then having done so, make the children of these other families swear never to have sex without getting married first, and things like that. Like, I will come after you somewhat more confrontingly. All three of them had the chance to really explain why hearsay had swung them more in one direction, a biased one and a presumptuous one. As none of them did, they are certainly enemies as far as I'll be concerned. So yeah, I really have nothing to gain. Trimming the fat is a metaphor for going, well, who's weighed me down. And I visited Alani earlier in the decade. At one point, she turns back at me and goes, "I looked good." I knew she was being interrogative, and she goes, because I'm more than aware of that tone with her. She's used it to make pedophilic relevant lines of questioning in the past too. Is that she goes, "Oh, I looked good enough to eat." I thought, you presumptuous, you truly presumptuous cunt. Like, why shouldn't I end your career and make a registered pedophile out of you? um, so what she does is she has this hero save the world religious crusade that she's on, and then she's bridging into psych. She doesn't, and yeah, the ruses she does not see through are pathetic. She once knew a lot better. She knew a lot better during the 90s at church, when she had the integrity to question a youth pastor whose fascist views really I mean, unless intimidation had bowled you over, you really had no choice but to argue with him. And he's put kids in psych wards. Cassandra Smith does something similar, but from a different direction. She has views that are truly sick. I mean, what right does she have to go around saying, well, men just want to fuck me, and then turn to me, and then, I mean, at one point, her boyfriend had accused her of fucking me. And she told me that her response was, if you accuse me of that once more, then I will. But what she had not done was ask me if I had an attraction to her. And I mean, that sort, an attraction of that sort. I'm shy in just finding friends that aren't like living forgeries. So yeah, and this goes on too because with capital chemists' larger interests in deceiving, surveying of how they do business. Is they think they do a lot of like subtle nudge, wink, insist they have nothing to do with any sort of complicity with Cassandra, and then no one will reconcile Cassandra's use of words to what they go on about during work time. And now what can go wrong in the meantime is, and this extends to from their ability to somehow have gotten science degrees, but then believe in these forged and plagiarized manuscripts, and furthermore believe people that they know oppose them are following them, but on a repressed level. Is that throughout the course of years of a non-contractual verbal employment basis, is that they think that they got an accurate read and handle on you, and they think that they have solicited or made various types of deals with you concerning the direction your career is to go in and what you have to offer in terms of their interests. When really you're oblivious actually to some very key aspects of what it is they think they've achieved, establishing a trust between you and them concerning. And so they'll then turn around and go, well, fuck you, you betrayed us. when really, like, you go, no, fuck you. You foisted your religion, despite at first saying that you wouldn't, through the confidentiality trust, that I had no comprehension of employee rights, other than by that verbal employee trust. And you've assumed that you and I have agreed on a lot of matters. Well, a few matters. Ordinary in their view, but criminally deranged on mine. And your foolish heroicism, I think, and your foolish faith-based presumptuousness. You're fallacious. As I already put it to you, that you're fallacious to claim your morals come from these pathetic stories, but pathetic stories are what come out in the wash from your ethical efforts and endeavors at the same time too. And how impressive do your morals seem then? They don't seem much better than Amish grandstanders in the 16th century, because you're fraudulent. You've gotten away with so much fraud that now, in relation to your own staff, you can be defrauding them, while thinking that by thinking that you and them see eye to eye and have agreement concerning certain agendas, when if they were discussed with a little more clarity, you would understand that you have opposition on such matters. But if they were discussed with more clarity at a time coinciding with your being surveyed, you would be admitted criminal as a corporation. So you don't see the risk as acceptable in the majority of conversations. But then that means, and your golden rule is a hindrance here, is that you effectively talk to yourselves while thinking that you've established trusts on certain matters between yourself and employees. This is known to be true. But now that I don't work for either of you, it's I guess it's part of your aging and withering faithy truth basics. And yes, that's a pejorative. And so then on the debate of, well, you know, healthcare and the demand for more staff, and are they humble enough to be paid retail award wages, shitty conditions, and will then motivate them by the enslavement religions. So you see these titles, ad hominem sort of titles. Jesus is Savior, Jesus is Martyr, Jesus is, you could say Jesus the Holy Faggot, like they could say whatever. It's not when it comes to trying to establish or deduce psychological truths, these sort of have to be cast aside on the basis of at least the lack of veracity pertaining to all of the Gospels, and the fact that, you know, that just as the Queen didn't hoist the flag for Diana, you know that kingdoms back then would have gone, well, we won't, like, we'll threaten to kill, but what if we offer papyrus manuscripts to families? They'll think it's amazing, but they need to write what we want them to write. Well, there's your Gospels of Matthew, Luke and John, just on that point alone. But then going even off Marx's 37 years after the fact, it's not the benefit of the doubt and proof beyond all reasonable doubt falls back on Jesus' side, and as soon as you're being psychological as well, you can't go, he was going up that hill thinking, well, I'm trying to save Luke in the year 2020 while carrying a wooden cross on his back. That he was captured at fucking ransom after being betrayed by a trusted disciple. You're saying you don't have proof he confessed in the Gospel of Mark, and that this would not have plunged him after being lashed and whipped into a suicidal state of mind while being marched up the hill. But once you get psychological about that and then go, well, now we're accepting that Jesus was suicidal while going up the hill. And see, they're trying to say ridiculous things. Like Calvary Hospital's trying to say that his own ransom and his own kidnap and ransom and betrayal was his own plan and devise from the fucking start. Like that. So now what are they doing in practice? Is that you can go in, if you can be by and go into a Calvary Hospital and say, I'm suffering from physically disabling pain, and then 4 guards will peg you to the floor after a stupid dumb blonde doctor cunt who has not applied psychology. I'm saying, if you want to keep your religion and say Jesus has a Superman cape on his back, then do not dabble in psychology. Because the price you're paying for not taking every implication of your religion and measuring it against all forms of psychological scrutiny is that you're then holding both at some point, but they don't make sense to even you. And then you're marching out against whoever it makes the most sense to approximate, making these grand marches, and those will be the bisexuals. And that's why you'll find, look up bisexual health statistics now, and you'll see nervous breakdowns, more depression, more suicidal thoughts. Yes, all caused by the religious. Absolutely. The vast majority of them are caused by attrition from religious people. They can be religious parents, they can be religious cousins and aunties, they can be religious employers, they can be religious hospitals, they can be religious law court judges, they can be religious whoever. But that's your cause there. So my argument is, and it was what I was going to do when I was getting taught to be a leader in a church, is that I would then draw lines and go, well, I'm not a psychologist as well. That's beyond the limits of what I've chosen to devote my life to, is what I would say. But that's not what greed does to the pious. Why is your behavior motivated by the desire to gain eternal reward after your death? Why don't you know reasons to be decent for decency's sake alone? It makes your charitability, your every move of charitability, seem facetious, contrived, illegitimate, sarcastic, insulting, insincere. I don't respect morals if it's dealing between, you know, myself and a person I care about is backed by wanting immortal life and not my care of that person. Trying to work out who I like more. Health and its deprivations got in the way of me meeting with the former Attorney General, Mr. Ramsey. was he not the Attorney General, but a kind of arts defender. Either way, he would have been great to talk to. There's a new one now, but I'm not sure if he's been quite within my rights to wonder if the new one's a Freemason purchase. And if he's not, he will be accosted by one after I talk to him or her. But anyway, what the Christians and the Masons have in common is that they don't want it to come out that their religion is absolutely explicit biphobia and kill bisexuals because it makes our inbred origins from a garden seem perfect yet again for another day. So they've misdefined, I think, the word perfect, because I don't think perfect means fucking your siblings and making babies with them. We evolved. Stars and all sorts of organic chemistry took place on this planet of which we are its progeny. We're the progeny of an it more so than a whom. Just thinking about that is so lovely compared to this creation story filth. So what they're doing is going, well, and you know, they'll never say in a crime story that opposites attract wasn't sort of like the binding principle, but that united the offender and the victim in the event of the criminal activity. So the heart-to-heart opposite of a inbred and interbreeding kingdom or kingdoms, that because of beliefs about bloodline purity, feel that they were replenishing themselves by shedding Jesus' blood and drinking it, however symbolically. It's not the point. The point is that bisexuals won't get representation unless that's fair, unless they're dealing with consultants who are opposed intellectually to the Christian and theological filth. It's not just, I've worked this out now, it's not just enough, particularly if you're trying to deal with legal battles. It's not enough to you can't have representation from someone who is not themselves an activist combatant against theology. I've checked and gone, well, they go, well, I'm just religiously neutral, like, I believe in science, but what they don't do is they don't go, well, I know how and why I can test religion. And I've told you over and over, so your only way to demonstrate that it has any validity is to practice a little play over and over again. The Toys R Us, and we don't even know. And that's what I truly think it is that we'll but bisexual minds, I'm not speaking for everyone, I'm speaking for myself. I don't get what you mean by gender without appeal to stereotypes, but I do get that stereotypes are often not based in fact. And so I'll get to know a person for who they are, and then if I love them, see, from a religious standpoint, they go, oh, they're both. Okay. That's why I'm a secret member of a religion that the Freemasons can't detect yet, where we pray to a god and goddess called Hermaphrodites, who is representative of the bisexual as both You kind of just go, well, I'm blind to your gender, because what, and I could say this if I were raised by a normal family unit, it's like, well, what is it that makes you a male? As anatomy aside, what is it what's the fucking difference? And more women should be doing, more anatomic women should have more. I don't want to be locked into a container and milked for sperm. Is my only consideration with, you know. But I don't think women. That idea is based on if women were given more power than men, got together and said, let's put men into sealed containers and milk them for their sperm. A part of me, I'm very misanthropic, and a part of me had sort of like, yeah, nice. But I like the right to move. So that's the problem with that. Open 7 days. We want to play with your ass. We suck balls. Come to Capital Chemist. We'll play with your ass. And we suck balls. Suck balls, suck balls. Capital Chemist. We suck balls. Capital Chemist. Open at a suburb near you.